So how often should you change your airlock seals? If you're doing a lot of drill and fill, nut and blow, you're going to need the higher PSIs. 3.5 for cellulose, 2.5 for fiberglass. Even though the seals have a long life, a friend of mine recommended that you change these out every time the time changes. So that's about every 6 months. We're just going to drop the front panel. You don't need to unscrew these all the way, just enough to slip the tabs down. And then we'll remove the front plate. And we've got a tensioner bolt here that we need to move and a tensioner bolt there that we need to release. Really need a beefy hex keys, see that? These are on real tight from the factory. It's because you don't want the chain slipping. So we're just going to relieve that chain. And now we have access to the airlock. So there's just 4 of these that go around this machine, the airlock. I usually have a magnetic tray to hold all this together. This is actually a critical part of your airlock. This is the tensioner foot. So what we're going to do is we're going to release this in order to take the airlock out. But when we put the airlock back in, we'll tighten this back down because it keeps this airlock from shifting back and forth. And if it shifts back and forth, even just the slightest, it can jam up your machine. If you're having problems with your machine jamming, that's the first thing I check, because that's a real quick, easy thing to check. And if that's tight, well, you know it's something else. Okay.
You don't take that all the way out?
No, we don't take it all the way out. We're just loosening it. On the back side of the airlock are 2 of those bolt sets. You're going to have to remove those as well. It really comes in handy having a ratchet like this, because it provides a little bit of light. You can see the bolt and it makes it faster. Your newer machines have the back foot right there too. In the 20-inch airlock, they have the larger tensioner bolt. Make sure that this thing is tensioned down. See how I'm doing this with my fingers? You shouldn't be able to turn it with your fingers.
For the PD blowers and 3,000 on up, you take this tensioner bolt off.
On the CM2400, we have our blowers in this box that send air down this one single tube into the airlock. So we're going to release this clamp here so that we can slide this out. We also have this bleeder valve that you're going to undo. I've got the chains loose, I've got this loose, I've got those bolts loose, it just slides out. This only requires a 1/2 inch. Again, I like to use power ratchets. Take it out. I work on 1 seal at a time. This is a 12-inch airlock, so the bolt configuration is going to be different on the 16 and the 20. It's all the same idea. 700 all the way up to their 4500. The smaller machines, you don't remove the airlock. It's just inside the machine. This 1500 and the 700.
On the 12-inch, we had 5 bolts to undo, correct? Yeah. And this one we have 7.
Okay. And then the seal comes out. And here is the plate that goes on the outside of the seal. So when we put it back in, we're going to put it back in this way. Now keep in mind, the legs on this are bent. So you want to make sure that they are this way, so the seal wraps this way. If you do it backwards, it pinches the seal and it creates a void. So make sure you put it back in this direction. I usually like to put the seal in. Make sure that your seal tabs, though, are flowing this direction. Okay? So that seal's going to curve like that. You want your seal to have a little bit of a curve this direction. And we're going to put these in the plate, poke them through the seal. And work these bolts in first. Make sure our tabs are all tucked in the right direction. Remember the curvature of this leg. It's going to go just like that. And we're going to get this put into place. And I just get a couple of threads on and leave it like that until I get them all in line. If you work one end to the other, then it helps you line up the center ones easier. Some people like to really work those seals in, right? What happens if you tighten them up too much, it makes it curve, and then when it's got that curve, then you got bleeding. You don't want that. So we're going to only tighten this up snug. And see how it just straightens right up? I'm going to work the other side too. Now I'm going to show you what it is when it's wrong, okay? So if you really crank this down, let's say if we crank this one in the center down too much, see how it's putting that little curvature in there? You don't want that. So we're going to back the tension off. I've had customers say, man, I just replaced my airlock seals and I got worse performance. And so that's one of the first things I ask them is, how tight did you put it in? Every time we put a new seal in, it gets tighter and tighter and more difficult to rotate. Now that I got the new seal in there, see how it's binding on me? It's perfect. See how the seal is worn? It doesn't look bad, it's just got that curve and it's allowing air to bypass it. These are not that bad a condition. They do need to be replaced. One down. When you're changing out your airlock seals, here's an old one. You can see how it actually has got the curvature now that it's been used and flexed. And that flex, you can spin this by hand almost. It's not too difficult. When you put in a new airlock seal, they're really stiff, and there's 6 of them. So every time you put in a new seal, it's going to be harder to rotate this cylinder. So we recommend putting a pipe wrench here, or it's what we're using is a couple of push bars to rotate that cylinder. We're just replacing the location of this airlock back in. Again, pinch the hose, makes it easier to get back around that inlet. But I'm gonna line this up first. If you're working alone, sometimes you may want to get an air shim. This will raise this up, the airlock up, so that you can easily get nuts and bolts in there. Make sure that you tighten your tensioner feet in the front and in the back. If you have a newer machine, there's one in the back now. Newer machines have this bleeder hose, so we're reconnecting that. Of course, just pinch and push this back over and clamp that down.
That's the radiator.
Yeah. And now we're just putting our chains back on. With every machine is an owner's manual. If you don't have one, we can get one to you PDF. It's available at coolmachines.com, and you can drop down and find download documents. And this shows you how the chains wrap around. Or you could take a picture of this before you undo it. If this chain is loose, this machine will sound really clunky, like it's going to fall apart on you. So what we're doing is we're going to put the tensioner bolt on and pry this tensioner bolt up. That's a nice screwdriver will help you get some good pressure up on that. And you can see as I'm pushing the pressure up how it tightens that chain right up. Once you get that chain looking like it's visually tight, go ahead and then crank this down. Okay, now smooth. Hear that?
Yeah, yeah.
And a lot of this machine is based on the 9/16 wrench. So you can't go wrong with having one of those around.